Hello, guys. Welcome back to Stay Strong podcast. We have Patch from US. Over to you, Patch. Introduce yourself, how you got into kettlebell sport.
Oh, hey, great. Thanks for having me on. My name's Patchen Noelke. I really got into kettlebells almost by accident,
Okay.
about 10 years ago. I was just really trying to get healthy. My kids were starting to hit their, early teenage years. I was feeling slow and lethargic and was having to buy bigger pants. And I found the only personal trainer I knew, Nikolai Puklov,
Okay.
and he was starting a gym. And his angle was going to be kettlebells. And he was actually renting space in another gym. But I started working with him, 2 or 3 days a week, personal training. And he just started working me out on kettlebells. And I started asking questions and that went on. And then finally he opened a gym and I joined some classes and I did a first competition and then just kind of used the competitions, to keep motivated. But really my motivation was really just to get in shape and be more healthy.
Okay. Okay. So, who was your inspiration to get started? Because generally, what happens is when you're getting into some sport, we generally try to find out the information on Google, and I'm sure you must have done that. So, where did you land? I mean, who did you see?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's really, probably really Nikolai.
Okay.
You know, he, I mean, we were blessed at the time here in Seattle. He opened Seattle Kettlebell Club, and it was
Okay.
right down the street from the house.
Okay.
And there were 6, 7, 8 kettlebell classes a day you could go to, and there was a pretty steady stream of people. So there
Hmm.
were, all of a sudden I knew 20, 30 people that were all doing kettlebells, and a subset of us were starting to compete, and
Okay.
Nikolai was hosting competitions, and all that really helped make it easy to like go lift with your friends and compete with your friends, and really be able to do it, down the street locally. So it was a real boon.
Okay. Okay. You had any fitness background up till now until you touched the kettlebells, like running, walking, swimming, or any other sporting activity? Like Paul had ice hockey background, so
Yeah, yeah.
you had any background?
Not really. I was pretty lethargic. I was in my, early 40s, and I hadn't really done anything meaningful since high school or college. I used to swim a lot. I was on swim team. College was pretty active, with biking and a little bit of roller hockey. But really, most of my adult life, working life, my metabolism was able to keep up, and I didn't really do a ton, a little bit of hiking here and there. But this really was the first time, as an adult, especially adult with kids, that I really, intentionally picked up a sport and began to compete. So it was kind of a
Okay,
nice renaissance, honestly.
okay, okay. That's nice. That's nice. What is your profession now? I mean, of course, like Paul is a coach, trainer,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so you are in which field?
Yeah, couldn't be more different. I'm a software executive.
Okay,
So I run a marketing department, and have done that for probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 companies during the time that I've been lifting kettlebells. But I've been doing that since I moved up here to Seattle in '95.
okay,
And it could not be more different. It's a desk job. It's a knowledge worker job. It's a lot of phone work. It doesn't really support, being active or kettlebell working at all. So like the two go good together.
okay.
But sometimes I am jealous of, lifters, who are personal trainers and are in that industry. I sort of feel like, they have a little more access to, time and whatnot. I really have to create the time and be very
Exactly.
disciplined about carving it out for sure.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, at times you must be missing the training and you must be regretting that, okay, yeah, this was my workout time, but now I'm working. So those things might be passing through your mind many
Yeah,
times.
well, and I think, travel is another one. There's a lot of travel usually involved. And so trying to make sure that it happens not just, during the day, during the week at home, but also, if you travel for a couple of weeks during a training cycle, trying to make sure you can find a remote gym or place to set up and do it.
Okay. 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 Which was your first competition, Patch? I mean, it was in the US or was it an online competition? How did you get started?
Well, I mean, I think there's really two that I kind of consider first. I know that that's a weird thing to say, but the first competition was a bolt competition, actually,
Okay.
that Nikolai hosted here. So that was really easy to do. It was kind of a pentathlon format. I think it was only 5 minute sets. It was multi-switch. It was super accessible. I was still super nervous, but that's really the first time that, like I got up, on a platform in front of a group of people and intentionally tried to do a thing. Um, but my second competition was the NorCal, or no, not the NorCal, the California Open.
Okay.
Um, at the time, it was in Southern California, um, and it was amazing. It was huge. Orange Kettlebell Club was putting it on. There were probably 6 platforms, and a couple of hundred people. It was a great experience. I did 16 kilogram biathlon.
Okay.
Uh, so I did the jerk. That was awesome. Um, and I actually threw a bell in the snatch right at the switch. So I only got through about 5 minutes, and in a couple of reps before the switch, I threw the bell.
Okay.
Uh, and Nikolai was great. He pulled me off to a side platform, and I ended up finishing up, off the platform, my left side, just to finish out the lift.
Okay.
But it was great. And I really got hooked from that. There's people I met at that event, all over the West Coast and the country that I'm still in contact with today.
Yes, yes. I remember that competition was hosted by OKC, and
Yeah.
I have played one of their competitions 2015 in Japan, and they did really good job. And I've been, of course, now Dennis Vasilev is taking care of the OKC, and he's a good friend of mine. I got
Yeah.
Dennis once in India in 2016, 2017, I believe, in one of the expos. So he was here in India. Then I got Ivan Denisov and other people. And recently I also got Olin. So yeah, so in India, the sport is growing. And I think similarly in the US, definitely it was much more when it started in late 90s, early 2000, when even Valery Fedorenko was there. I mean, you must be aware of Valery Fedorenko, right?
Yeah, actually, I got to train with him a little bit.
Okay.
He the Seattle Kettlebell Club. Boy, I can't remember. It must be like 2019 or maybe 2020, right before COVID. He came, and he did some training sessions with the team at
Okay.
Nicolette Club there, and I think I did a personal session with him. It was great, and I have a
Yes.
couple of his bells still too. In fact, this series I've been training on Fedorenko bells, because I'm planning to go to the WKSF World Championships in Poland in a couple of weeks, and that's
Yes.
pretty close to the bell handle they have.
Yes,
Um,
yes, 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 yes. And I'm sure I'm gonna meet you there.
yeah, that'll be great. And Dennis Vasiliev and John Wild, both at OKC. I mean, obviously they put on some of my favorite events, but I'm gonna see Dennis tomorrow. He is gonna be at the K2 kettlebell competition, which is tomorrow in Everett, the
Okay.
former Monkey. So I know he's gonna come up there. And this last cycle, I've been Dennis has been coaching me and writing my programming. So actually sort of that culminates with the what I'm going to do at Poland. So it's
Super.
great.
Great. You can say hi to him from me. Great. Um, Important thing is at this point in time when you're lifting, as your age progresses, as you know, we lose the muscle mass. Simultaneously, we also lose the motivation to lift. Now, in your case, how do you keep yourself motivated? Do you have any kind of a ritual which you follow? Like maybe it can be a meditation, it can be anything. It can be maybe looking to some videos. What is your take on that part where people like you are getting into the sport and wants to do the sport for a little longer time, maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do a couple of things. I think the biggest thing is um I do use competitions as a motivation to train. So I try to intentionally sign up for, a competition. I'm usually always signed up for some competition that's in the future.
Okay.
And that kind of, keeps me engaged because it's not it's almost impossible to show up last minute with no prep and, perform in front of people. So at least that keeps the general pressure on to train. But consistency is maybe the more interesting thing. And I use a couple of things to really try and stay consistent. One, I do try to write out or hire a coach to write out usually, 12 to 18 weeks of a training program. So I'm usually working in like 90-day or 120 or 140-day kind of segments. So I
Okay.
kind of know what I'm going to do. And I kind of usually commit to I'm going to do 3 days a week, or I'm going to do, every other day. Like I set my frequency.
Okay.
And I know what I'm going to do, and I can see the bell progression, and I can see the progression, the discipline. And that at least is a plan for a plan. And then I think the third bit is on the day of, I try to do some things for accountability. I mean, I think the easiest things are work out with someone else, because then you kind of make a date. But through COVID, when we couldn't really get together with people, and because the kettlebell community is like, it's not giant and it's diverse, it's everywhere. I use a lot of social media. I would
Okay.
say 90% of my Instagram posts are about kettlebell. I'm sure it drives a bunch of people crazy, but it's literally, hey, I have completed today's workout, usually with a picture, maybe with a little bit of video of the bit and a tiny bit of commentary, and maybe a meditative, quote, stoic quote of the time. That kind of was the workout thought.
Okay.
Um, but I use that for accountability, and I feel like, okay, well, if I can be consistent with that, well, then I have to do the work. So it's kind of have like those layers,
Okay.
committing to competitions, being intentional about programming, and then being accountable to other people on your team or in the community, some way. And
Okay.
Instagram, Facebook, all these social media. I mean, it could be anything. I'm like with some folks, there's a Discord group. With other folks, it's a text group. I'm in an accountability text, kind of back and forth with my son. He's in college.
Okay.
He texts me when he's completed, his stats homework or his chem homework, because he's really trying to get more consistent on it. Well, I send back, hey, here's my consistency photo. I finished my workout for the day. I'm one day closer, one day better, 1% better. So
Okay. Okay. Wow,
yeah.
that's really nice. Yeah, if you have anyone who's accountable to what you're doing, and definitely vice versa, it really works a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you're doing journaling also. Do you do the journaling? Like, yeah, you write down certain things. Like for example, if you write down your workout, if you perform that, do you write down that again? How is it?
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny in my work life, I've um I do a lot of project planning, but I've also worked for a
Okay.
lot of analytics companies. So I think one of the appeals is I have like spreadsheets for everything.
Okay.
So uh I have, spreadsheets with 18-week programs in them. Each row is, the workout, what was the program workout of the day? What were the results? What was my max heart rate? And usually some kind of commentary about, how that lift went. Whether it was like, hey, I was trying to work on insertion that day, or I was trying to work on, switching to thumbs forward, or this seemed hard. So there's sort of like notes and records and data. Um,
Okay.
I mean, down to like how many reps did I do each minute of the
Okay.
workout, to
Okay.
just kind of see those trends. So a lot of record keeping.
Okay. Okay.
And
Okay.
it's somewhat meditative too. I would say, like, I know I was real consistent earlier this year that like every workout had a stoic, thought
Okay.
about, what it's sort of like training the mind, I guess, but like really intentional.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. Nice. Great. So, batch 10 years before, you were not doing kettlebells, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. It's been about 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah, 10 years before, you were not doing kettlebells.
No,
And
nothing.
now you're actively doing kettlebells. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, 10 years back, how was you were doing some kind of a physical activity. So how was your lifestyle and how it has helped now when you have become 10 years
Yeah.
older? What are the changes that has
Well,
come? Physical
yeah,
and mental, physical and mental both.
totally. Yeah. I mean, I think there's tons of data out there about um, as you get older, but really just anyone about, doing consistent resistance training. And it has some real distinct benefits, distinct benefits physically, better blood flow, better bone density, just generally feeling better, more energy. And that's certainly true. Um, Mentally, honestly, it has probably had the biggest impact. I think just having something that is so hard to do, which I think is what makes it so rewarding,
Okay.
has been nice, balance toward, not getting, totally obsessed with work, which is also intense, but in a different way, like mentally intense. And it's been a really nice balance. And I think it's helped me, you know, in my personal life with my, with my relationship with my family and my kids, just being a little more balanced and a better role model. I think it's helped dramatically at work and just, being in a leadership position and being able to relate to people, being able to remain calm, being able to have a, a release for, all that, pent up mental activity and mental frustration, have a real nice balance to it. So I think it's really had a huge impact, both professionally and personally.
That's really nice to hear about it. And the more important part here is I feel is the consistency of the training what you do. I mean, if you're lifting kettlebells and if you're lifting only once in a week, it doesn't make any sense. If you're lifting it for 3 times a week, then probably yes, I would say. Because yeah, many a people, many a times I see when I'm doing a podcast, they might want to have a lot of things involved into their training program. They want to do, maybe they want to go for a run, hiking, maybe they want to use kettlebells, maybe they want to lift weights, but not really consistent weight training. I mean, those people are also those people who are not competing into kettlebell sport, but using kettlebells as a fitness tool. But at this age, if you're using it as a kettlebell sport, like what you're doing, it's really impressive. What
I
is
mean, I think
your,
that, oh,
yeah,
go
sorry,
ahead.
sorry. No, I was
I was
going to
gonna
ask you another question. Yeah, you can add on.
I was just gonna say that, I mean, I think over those 10 years, I've had all like different kinds of, discipline. I think there are definitely times where I was like more focused specifically on kettlebell sport. There are other times where I was maybe more focused on just working out with kettlebells, just doing circuit training or other movements. All those things have like, benefits. Honestly, one of the things about like really high performance kettlebell lifting is you can't just do kettlebell sport lifts. It's really helpful to add some general physical preparation.
Yes,
Um,
GPP workouts. Yeah.
Deadlifts and, back squats and ab curls and not to mention cardio and things like that. But there's a bunch of assistance work. Um, it can be really hard to just train kettlebells for sport alone. I think I had a period during COVID where we really pretty much had built a gym in the garage.
Okay.
Um, and I was doing some intense kettlebell sport work, just cycle after cycle, and really trying to go up in weight, which for me meant 24s. And I had some great results, but honestly, I really overtrained almost too much of the same motion, and I had a lot of issues in my knees and
Okay.
in my elbows and the joints. And
Okay.
it kind of caused me to take a step back for a good 9-12 months of really not doing any kettlebell specific work, just trying to recover from low bursitis and things like that. So now I have a much more consistent but much more balanced approach.
Approach. Okay. Okay. That's
Yeah, I
nice.
mean, like that's probably the big difference in getting older is that now I try to make all the reps count. No more junk reps, right? No more junk volume. And then I add a lot more assistance work in that's not kettlebell specific to up the volume and up the strength training. So,
Okay. What is your biggest challenge in lifting kettlebells at this age? Whether It's the time and the tension you're lifting, or um, I just want to understand, like, how do you face the challenge when you're up the weights, like 60 to 20, 20 to 24? What challenge do you face, whether it is a mental challenge or if there is something else?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I mean, I actually feel like the mental challenge is easier as you're older.
Okay.
Um, I have like some, funny lines about that, but I mean, I think as a mature lifter, it's easier or you have a better chance of like I have adult children. I'm like, hey, I I feel somewhat resilient to failure or pride. Like I don't really care as much what people think. I have maybe a better identity. And I
Okay.
can remember being younger and I can see, in my kids who are college age now, they're still really concerned what other people think. And, sometimes they don't do stuff because they're afraid of how they look. And, look, it's not a very flattering sport. You put on these tight shorts and you're exposed to the world and you get up there and people watch you suffer for 10 minutes and, you look awkward. And so if you part of your mind is distracted by how you look or whatnot, it doesn't help you. But I think the older you get, that's easier. Now, on the other hand, I think the toughest part of lifting, for me, the toughest challenge is recovery time. It really is recovery time.
Okay.
Managing recovery is the hardest thing because it's the thing that takes, tens or 12s or 24 hours after a lift to really make sure that, you're well stretched out, doing mobility, whether you're using ice or heat or whatever to just recover and get ready for the next lift. Um, Whereas I think when I was younger, or if you're a younger lifter, you can just go back the next day and do more load and lift more. Um, I feel like I have to focus a little bit more on making sure I get in the mobility lifts and the stretching lifts between. And I really almost have to be sparing with the amount of kettlebells I lift, just targeting 3, maybe 4 days a week. Sometimes I'll even break a 1 day workout into 2 halves. Like if I'm supposed to train long cycle and snatch on a day, and we're in the laborious cycle, kind of at the 10-week part in the last third, I might start to break those up and do one day and one the next day, even if it's only, 20 minutes of lifting.
Okay.
Um, it's just easier because I do think you know, the bells themselves are the challenge, trying to go
Yes.
weight going from 24s to 28s or 28s to 32s. The older you get, I mean, they start to really bite and it's really the recovery time. So
Okay.
some
Okay.
things are easier. Mentally, I think it's way easier. Older people are just mentally tougher, like try and keep up.
Yes.
Um, but then the weights themselves really do take a toll, a physical
Yes.
toll. And that can't
Absolutely.
be talked either. Yeah.
Okay. Um, what nutrition program do you follow, Patch? In the sense, like, do you add on supplements, or are you absolutely pure on what you eat and you do not have any kind of supplements? Whether you're
Oh,
veg, whether you're non-vegetarian,
yeah.
and do you follow any fasting protocols or anything, something like that?
This is actually a really new thing that I've added. In the
Okay.
last year, I made about a year ago after Worlds last year in Hungary.
Mhm.
Um, I was not super happy with my performance at Worlds. It was about a third of what my best was. And it was just tough environment, really hot, new bells, jitters, first time at Worlds, all that kind of thing. But I couldn't really feel like my body could keep up, like my cardio couldn't keep up. So one of the things I did was I intentionally decided to focus on nutrition,
Okay.
and I hired a nutrition coach, just like I would hire a kettlebell coach. I
Oh,
hired Tom
wow.
Furman. We actually didn't even really get a chance to meet in person. He's in Florida, but um, we built a nutrition program together. Very simple, macro diet.
Yeah.
For me, it was 200 grams of protein, 200 grams of carbs, 100 grams of fat, and fit all that within 2,500 calories a day.
Yeah.
Um, and then I had a list of foods that are good, better, best that fit in those categories.
Okay.
So I did that, pretty intentionally for, well, I'm still doing it now. So let's say, 12 months, but after about 6 months, I had dropped about 30 pounds.
Okay.
But more importantly, um, I did a pair of lifts earlier this year in February that were exactly the same as what I had done the previous year at Worlds. And even though I was a year older, I was 35% faster.
Okay.
So I did a pair of lifts after training nutrition intentionally, and I went from like 64 reps on the 24 and long cycle to 87 reps, like just dramatic. And it was mostly nutrition. And at the same time, he had me start training cardio. So I added like 40, 3 days a week, doing at least 30, 40 minutes of cardio.
Running.
Yeah, and stage two cardio, right? Like low heart rate, like 130.
Okay.
Um, so now, my daily nutrition routine, obviously that's a lot of protein. 200 grams is a lot of protein. So one of those meals usually contains a protein shake, and I use a whey protein, and that's super helpful. You asked about supplements.
Yes.
Most of my supplements I put in there. Um, I use I add a beet powder and turmeric, but for hearts and for joints.
Okay.
Um, but I also add a creatine in there, the sort of naturally occurring, steroid, again for kind of recovery
Yes.
and joints and whatnot. And then I do live in the Northwest, so the only supplement I regularly take is a vitamin D
Okay.
pill, because we suffer from a lot of lack of sunlight.
Sunlight.
Uh,
Yeah.
so those together seem to make a real big difference. I can tell that my resting heart rate is consistently lower,
Okay.
which I kind of associate with recovery.
Okay.
Um, and that's what the sort of beet powder and consistency of the nutrition diet, but like a lean protein, low fat diet essentially. Although there's still a lot of calories because there's a lot of working out, right?
Okay. Okay. Yes. Yes. So you have choices in your meal when you are picking up the protein, because you're having 200 grams of protein. Like for example, if you are non-vegetarian, you're having chicken, fish, or something selective like pork or beef, or what is your mostly the selection part?
Well, I would say a cornerstone of every day is a whey protein in a shake.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's usually, I mean, we live in the Northwest, so if it's fish, it's almost always salmon.
Okay.
Uh, it's a lot of chicken breast,
Yeah.
for sure, or chicken thighs too. They taste good. Um, and then like maybe like a lean steak, like a filet mignon,
Okay.
either grilled or cut up and sautéed. A lean ground beef, like a 95%.
Okay.
Um, Shrimp are a mainstay, getting
Okay.
a bag of shrimp, have that in the fridge. That's an easy thing to, pull out. Lean protein, turkey meatballs, things like that. So those are like most of the proteins. I guess there's a baked tofu in there somewhere that gets into the rotation, and change it up. And
Okay.
then obviously I have an office job, so a couple of days a week I'm definitely eating, from the food court or for whatever is in the building,
Available. Okay.
and that mostly looks like some kind of rice bowl or salad, so.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Great. Okay. Any negatives about kettlebell training? Any negatives in the sense in like, of course, negatives would be maybe some kind of injury or maybe some negative experience if you have.
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of touched on it before. I did have this period, you know uh but it was during COVID, so I think that was like a weird period for a lot of people. But I definitely did some overtraining, and
Overtraining,
I
yeah.
yeah, and I really just didn't listen to my body a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could still lift really strong. I could still really do a lot of jerks, and I could do a lot of long cycle with heavy weights. And I was competing a lot with the 24s.
Okay.
Um, but you really don't bend your knees that much in the lift itself. Um, but I was really paying the price in my knees and joints. And I started
Okay.
to realize that like I really couldn't walk up or down stairs like without pain. but I could still go out and train because there really isn't that much bend. You know, I could almost like ignore it then, but like everyday life became like a real hazard. And then you can tell it's like all of a sudden you're looking around and you're like, hey, why do I own, 6 pairs of knee braces and all these ice packs and these patella tendon kind of straps, and I'm trying to treat all these symptoms in my knees, but I'm not really training, changing my training habits. I would just keep going on, and somewhere I probably just had bad form in like a single leg deadlift or whatever I was doing assistance work. And that caused me to get a little bummed out, right? And I kind of walked away from it for
Okay.
about 9 to 12 months, where I just really didn't train. It was kind of the end of COVID, starting a new job. There were lots of reasons to like not, really do it. But I actually got back into it with Paul pretty seriously. You know, he had a day a couple of years ago and he came over and he had been diagnosed with cancer and he was about to go in for treatment for it. And then in the middle of treatment, he signed up for World Championships in Hungary and said, "Hey, you want to do this with me? I'm going to beat cancer, and then we're going to train like crazy, and then we're going to go to World Championships." And I said, "Sure." And that really got me back into it.
Okay.
And it really caused me to change the way I train.
Okay.
I really made a commitment to do lighter total load,
Okay.
but heavier lifts. So I really stopped lifting lighter weights, to warm up, or lighter weights, for extra reps or technique. I
Okay.
really just focused on like, I'm going to just lift my competition weight. I'm going to get my workload done. And then I'm going to use the extra time to add, mobility or add, stretching or whatnot.
Okay.
I'm assistance. So that's really like made a huge difference, just managing recovery as a training tool in and of itself. And I think before I was just adding load, like I would have done, earlier in my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Great. Did you attempted or try to coach or write programs by yourself
Oh yeah.
earlier? I mean, I just
Yeah.
wanted to know the difference between you training by yourself and you training with a coach. What is the difference?
Yeah.
How important is a coach for you?
This is really interesting. My thinking on this has really like evolved this year.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of the certifications. I'm a certified kettlebell coach and programmer. And I've written my own programs, for a long time. I've also used a bunch of different coaches programs and had them write. This cycle, this past year, I wrote a program, an 18-week program, to get ready to qualify for qualifications. It culminated in February.
Okay.
And actually, I used Dennis's book. I bought his book. It's one of the only books out there in English that really has a comprehensive methodology. And I studied his book and I took what I knew and I wrote a program based on that, and it worked very, very well. But, it took some time. It took me like a couple of solid, days and weeks to sort of, plan it all out. Paul and I worked it together, worked great. When I came up to this next cycle, I had this point where I was like, do I want to sit down and write my own programming and then spend the entire program second guessing whether did I write it too hard or write it too soft, because it's super easy. Like everyone's their own worst critic. And instead I called Dennis up or contacted him through his website and just asked him if he would coach me and write a program. And for me, it was about simplifying the training. I was like, I know I can do it, but I think it's better if I have someone else do it, because then I'll feel accountable to it and I won't second guess. Is it too hard or too soft? It's just the program.
Absolutely.
Then all I have to do is go out there and work the program, be coachable, right? That's my responsibility then. And either I can do the program as written or I can fail at the program as written. either one is really, really useful. And so I think it's been good. It simplifies the number of decisions I have to make.
Yes.
And I think that's a benefit anytime. So like right now, I have this philosophy that the best state to get to would be that you're working out with three groups of people. And this would be best. One, it's really good to work out with folks or be in a community with folks who are early in the sport or rising up, because then you have someone, to teach or exchange information with or help out. Like that's the community aspect. And then it would be really great if there's another set of people who are like your peers, that you're all at about the same level. And so you're sort of like competing together and helping each other, and learning from each other, but really the sort of, competing bit. And then it's really helpful if like you can work with someone, usually a coach, who's a lot better than you. They're at the next level is really what I mean, because
Yes.
then you have something, that's where you're getting new skills and new techniques. And I would say the biggest change that I've experienced, to sort of put working with Dennis this last cycle is I've spent 9 years, like I'm a pretty good snatcher. Like I have like, reasonable numbers, and I have always done it thumbs back. And on 16s and 20s, that's just not really been a problem. Just blazing. Yeah. Cardio has been the limiter. For whatever reason, this cycle, 24s, thumbs back was really starting to burn out my forearm and slow me down. And I switched to a thumbs forward. And I don't think without a coach, I would have ever been brave enough to, it's a pretty big change.
Yes.
And even with a coach, I had some hesitancy and I would switch back and try things out. But at some point during this cycle, Dennis and I just decided, well, let's just commit to thumbs forward and see what happens. And I feel much less, arm strength, grip strength, fatigue at a higher weight, right? But it was almost like I had reached a problem that I couldn't diagnose and solve on my own. And I don't know how you get there if you don't have someone who's looking at the numbers and looking at the videos like right along with you and helping with the program. So,
Okay. That's a really nice information or description you have given to have a coach. Of course.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's worth, I think there's so many coaches out there, and there's so many ways to get it now, especially like, Zoom coaches and remote coaching and programming. And, it'd be great if there were a few more, in-person opportunities, but post-COVID, the Zoom technology and the Zoom acceptance by so many people is so, look at us, right?
Yes, it is just zoomed.
Yeah, that's right. It's brilliant, right? We do it all day all the time.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you very much. We would like to know your best lifting records in all formats, including biathlon, long cycle, marathon if you have played, and the best ones.
Yeah. No, so right now, I'm 51, so I'm definitely focused right now on the 24s, right? It's a great bell to lift at 50, but it's hard. So let's see. I have probably the record that seems the most significant to me is my long cycle 24 number, which is 87 reps.
Wow.
And I just did that in February. And previously I had tapped out at like 69. So 87 seems like a real breakthrough for me.
Okay.
Snatch in the 24, 174 reps. I actually think have a pretty good chance of setting a new PR tomorrow, or at least I'm training at 100 at 18 reps a minute.
Okay.
So that one feels like it's improving. Okay. So those are real recent. My jerk and biathlon scores are actually pretty old in the 24s. They're from 2020 and they're low. My jerk, I'm looking at my sheet, it's 75 is the maximum, which now is below my long cycle bit. So I think maybe next cycle I'll pick up jerk and biathlon again. And then my biathlon score is 143 for the 24s.
Okay.
And then, I mean, I don't know if you want more. My real quick, my 20 kilogram numbers, long cycle 104,
But that's
jerk.
marathon, or you're talking about 10-minute
Oh,
classic?
these are all 10-minute sets.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So long cycle, 20 kilograms, 104 reps, jerk, 20 kilograms, 126 reps, snatch, 20 kilograms, 210 reps, and then a biathlon score of 226.5.
Yeah.
All
Interesting.
those are from pretty much 2020.
Okay. And marathon? You
You
don't do?
know, I don't do a lot of marathons. I love Jason Dolby's one arm long cycle charity event every
Charity.
year.
Yes, yes, yes. I've done that
I
once.
do, yeah, I do it a lot for fun. I don't know that I've ever counted. I I have some training partners that love marathons, and I've tried them out. I would say at about 15 minutes, I get real bored. Sitting there with one bell just going over and over. It's just not my thing. I so would prefer to put two bells in my hand and and go hard, or go fast. Uh, but it certainly is maybe a level of mental toughness that either I don't have, or it's a level of mental toughness I don't enjoy enough to pursue and develop the 30-minute or the 60-minute lift. Although I love the one arm long cycle when it's with a bunch of friends in a room and it's a charity event and stuff like that. That I do, and I certainly do a ton of one arm work, as assistance work, and I love those pyramids and things like that. But just not my thing. Has not been my thing, the marathon.
Okay, 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 okay. So, what lift are you doing in Poland? Sorry,
Oh,
sorry.
I signed up for two events in Poland. I I signed up for long cycle on the 24 and snatch on the 24.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's nice.
And I did enter in both the open category and the I can't remember what they call it. It's their veterans category. They have a 50 to 60-year-old category, I think. So I'm
Yes,
in that
yes.
category as well. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
But it was pretty nice. It was a pretty special moment last year in Hungary in the open category. I ended up on stage with, I can't remember if it was 5 or 6 other people, but it was
Okay.
everyone, every platform, and everyone was lifting 24 long cycle, and everyone was over 95 kilograms. So that was one of the places where it's like, oh, here are like 6 or 7 people. They're all doing the exact same lift with the exact same bell, and they're all in the exact same body weight category.
What's your body weight?
For WKSF, that's in the 95 plus. I am about 101 kilograms right now. So
Okay.
on an IKO table, I'm in the 102. But for the last, 6, 7 years, I've really been in the 102 plus, or even the
Okay.
105 plus
Okay.
category. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah, so I'm fighting into that 102 category on IKO.
Okay. 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 That's nice. Good luck. Good luck for that.
Yeah.
Good.
Awesome.
Any message Patch to our viewers who are about 50, or even who are getting started with the kettlebell sport and younger to you, to the Indian viewers, to the viewers who are watching or who would probably watch this podcast all over the world?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if it's for people who want to get into it in India or anywhere, I can't say enough about the value of hiring a coach. I think it has a lot of benefits. One, so many weird things about kettlebell you need to ask questions about in the beginning. So just get a coach, so you don't have to second guess programming. The other thing is what you usually find in orbit around a good kettlebell coach is a community of other lifters to relate to, whether it's in person or online. And I think that's really a requirement for long-term sustainability. Like, you really want to stick with it. You can't feel like you're alone. It is an endurance sport, and it is resistance training. By definition, you are going to fail at a lot of things in your progression in kettlebell sport. And it's good and healthy to fail at those things, but they have an immense pressure on your mental fortitude. And if you're not surrounded with a coach or peers who have either been there before you or are going through it with you, I think it greatly reduces, your ability to stick with it, or you're going to have to rely on something else to stick with it. I can tell you, you know, it's not my spouse or kids. They're sick and tired of hearing about, kettlebell and challenges, and no one who isn't doing kettlebell sport can really relate when you start talking about, insertion or my grip or my, foot placement, or, how high should I wear my belt, or do I, wet my shirt or not wet my shirt? Do I use chalk or not use chalk? There's just like a million little things. And so you need a community of folks.
Absolutely.
And I think the easiest way to find that is actually around a coach.
Okay. Cool. Great, Patch. Thank you very much for your time. It's been a really great conversation with you, and I wish you good luck for the upcoming World Championships. I really look forward to meet you, say hi to you if you're around, and definitely talk more about kettlebell sport when we meet in person.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'll see you in Poland. I think we're at 20 days out now.
Absolutely.
It's time to put up or shut up, I guess.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks.